Welcome everyone to our webinar today. My name is Sean and I'll be the host for today's webinar, which is sending emails and newsletters with ClubRunner. With me today is my co-host Robin, who will be manning the Q&A session. So just some things I want to mention before we go ahead and get started. During the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A box in Zoom rather than the chat. Robin will be keeping an eye on the Q&A section there. So we will be answering questions as we go through the webinar. So like I said, just to reiterate, if you do have questions, please post them in the Q&A box rather than the chat in Zoom. And another note before we get started, I do want to mention that these sessions will be recorded and they will be made available through our knowledge base at clubrunnersupport.com after the conclusion of the training sessions. So please keep that in mind. We will be recording these sessions and they will be available for review at a later date. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started on our webinar today. So just some topics that we are going to be covering today. So we are going to be covering sending broadcast emails to targeted recipient lists, reviewing email delivery statistics, managing blocked or bounced email recipients, customizing and designing bulletin templates, as well as archiving bulletins. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've already gone ahead and logged into the member area. And when you initially log into the member area, you'll be taken to the welcome dashboard that we see here. And just a note that when you log in to ClubRunner, you might see a different dashboard from what I have here. So it is depending on your access level. So right now I'm logged in as a site administrator. So I have access to the site administrator dashboard. You can see I also have the tabs up at the top. But if you are just a member of the club, you'll see something like this. So do keep in mind that the dashboard might look a little different from what you see here on my screen. But let's go ahead and get started here. So first thing we are going to talk about is sending out emails to specific recipients. So in order to do that, we can scroll down on the dashboard here to the communication panel. We can click send email or we can click the email services link. Another option, if we're not on the dashboard page here on the light blue menu bar near the top, we can go ahead and click on the communication tab. And then on the menu bar directly below, we can go ahead and click email services. Once you click on email services, you'll see the club communication page here. And we can see a list of previously sent and created emails. And on the top right here, we have an orange button that says compose new message. So we're going to go ahead and click on that to create a brand new email.
Sorry, John, quickly. Is it possible, is it Sue Rickett asked if you could zoom in a little bit?
Okay,
further?
yep. Actually, I did have it zoomed in a little bit to kind of help, but hopefully I'll zoom in a little bit more. And there we go. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I'm at 150%.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, Sue. If it gets too short or if it's too truncated, Sean might have to zoom out. So I apologize, but we'll do our best for that, Sue. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks for letting me know. So yeah, I'll zoom in a little bit more here, and hopefully that makes it a little clearer for you guys to see. So now that we're in the create email page, what we can see on the left here under step 1 is where we select our recipients. So we can see we have different groups of recipients. So the first one here, of course, active and honorary members. We have other users, inactive members. We have club executives and directors current year. So you may or may not have access to this specific grouping. Because in this case, I am listed as an executive of the club. I do have access to this, but if you're not, you may not have access to this particular group. Then we also have a custom distribution list, contact groups, and prospects by status. For contact groups, we will take a look at that shortly, how to create groups and assign contacts. But for now, let's focus on the active and honorary members group. So when creating an email, of course, we need to select recipients. So if we want to send an email to, let's say, all active and honorary members, we can go ahead and just click this checkbox next to that group. And you can see here on the right, it says 21 out of 24 selected. So we'll take a look at why there's 3 that aren't being selected. But if you do want to send an email to all members in this particular group, you can use that checkbox. If you want to, filter out or narrow down your recipients a little bit further, you can go ahead and click this plus sign here, just to the left of the checkbox. And I'm just going to uncheck that for now. And we'll see different subgroups. So we have, rather than just all active and honorary members, we have it by a specific member type. So we have active, active corporate, and honorary. So for example, if I wanted to send this email just to honorary members, I can go ahead and just select the honorary group here. If I wanted to go even further and pick individual members that I want to send this email to, I could do that as well. So for the active group here, let's go ahead and click this expand link. And once we do that, we can see this pop up with the list of all of the members in that active group. So if we scroll down here, we can see that there are the members along with the checkboxes. So we can, check who we want to send the email to. But if we scroll down, we'll see Gil here has the checkbox disabled. And if we try to click it, we can't. So in order to find out why that is, what you can do is if you hover over that disable checkbox for a second, you'll see a tooltip there. And in this case, it says email address for this recipient is missing or invalid. So that means that Gil, in this case, either has an invalid email on their member profile or doesn't have an email at all. So if you see that, like we saw earlier, where it says 21 out of 24, and you're not sure why not all of the members are selected, you can always come into that expand pop-up here and hover over the checkbox to find out why. Another common reason that a member might not be selectable here is because they've opted out of receiving this specific email. So if they, for example, opted out of receiving club emails, then they also won't be able to be selected here. And of course, if you hover over, it'll tell you that this recipient has opted out of emails. So for this example, I'm just going to scroll down and I'm going to click Sean Smith here, and I'm going to click done. And as we can see, I've only selected that one member, and only 1 out of 21 active members are selected, and only 1 out of 24 active and honorary members. So that's how you can, select which recipients are going to receive it. Again, if you just wanted to select, all other users, you can just use that checkbox. But the system does allow you to further, select specific recipients or specific groups that you want to send to. Just going to go ahead and collapse that there. Now on the right, we have several different options here, starting with the subject. So of course, this is the subject of the email that we are going to send. And below that, we have a section called templates and merge fields. So let's start with the templates. With the email system, we do have the option to create and use templates. So if there's an email that maybe you send regularly, we can certainly set up a template for that, and then that way you don't have to keep retyping out the same or similar email. You can create a template and just keep reusing that. So just to show you how that works, we're going to go ahead and click this drop down, and we're going to select custom. We do also have the system option, but for templates that you create, they'll be listed under custom. So I'll go ahead and click that. And once we click on that, there's going to be another drop down, which we can select. And this is going to be the list of custom templates that we currently have. So it looks like we have one here, invitation template, Kipling. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And once we have that selected, I can go ahead and click on this insert button. It's going to ask me to confirm because it's going to replace the content that we have already set. So I'm going to click OK. And you can see here that the subject has updated. And if we scroll down a little bit, the email body, this section here has also been updated with the data from the template. So this just inserts the template into the editor. Of course, we can still go in here and make modifications and changes, but you know, if you have that template as a starting point, at least that may help you, especially if you're sending out similar emails multiple times. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and just clear this back out. I'm just going to change this. There's more room, and I'm going to clear this all out. So that is the template portion. The next three sections that we see here, recipient, sender, and account, these are all merge fields. And what merge fields do is they allow you to add specific information into an email. So for example, if I'm sending an email to several people in the club, and I want to start off the email by saying, you know, hello and their name. I can't just say hello, John, because of course, you know, everybody's name might not be John. So what we could do in this case is we can actually use mail merge fields. So in this case, we want the recipient first name. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we can see down here that it inserted this $ first name $. So whenever you see this $ something $, that indicates that this is a merge field. And so what will happen is if I send this out to, you know, 5 people, the system is going to send the email out, but it's going to replace this $ first name with that recipient's first name. So if I send it to John and Sean, it's going to say hello, John, for the email that John gets, and it's going to say hello, Sean, for the email Sean gets. So it's really great to be able to use those merge fields. And we do have several options. So as you can see here, we have recipient title, first name, nickname, middle name, last name, suffix, and a bunch of other member specific options as well. I'm just going to go ahead and add last name as well. And we also have the same thing for sender. So if we want to include sender information, we can go ahead and insert that. So if I click this sender dropdown, I can, let's say, thank you. That's some space there. And I'm going to insert the sender first name and the sender last name. There we go. So here, I guess you could just, you know, you could just put your name here. But in cases where, like, let's say you're creating a template, for example, it might not always be you sending it out. This is where the mail merge field really helps. So you don't have to worry about that. So let's just put those back. And lastly, we have the account merge fields similar to the other two. It'll merge in data, but this time it's just account specific. So things like the account name, account address, state, things like that, we can include as well. So I'll just go ahead and add that in there. And that's how the mail merge fields work and how you insert them into the email. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, and we could see the email that we've composed so far. We do have, of course, all of the editor options directly above. So you do have options to bold and add images and things like that. So all of these are available for you to use. We're just going to keep it basic for the webinar, but you can certainly play around with those options. Now we're going to scroll down. So we have our message set up. We're going to scroll down and we're going to take a look at step 3. So we do have the ability in ClubRunner to include attachments to your email. So if you do have things you want to attach, you click this button, select files for upload. It's going to open up your Explorer on your computer where you can select the file that you have that you want to upload. Next, under step 4, we have the option to include a link to list of recipients. So what this will do is it's going to include a link on the footer of the email, so at the very bottom, where the user can click the link and view who else received the email. And you also have the ability to copy yourself on this email. And at the bottom here on step 5, which is the final step, we have the option to either send the email right now, or we can schedule this email to be sent out in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and click schedule. And we're going to go ahead and select a date. So let's just say April 30th, and we can use this time picker. So if we want to go up, we can click the up. If we want to go down, we can click down. And of course, we can change the minutes and PM and AM. So we'll go ahead and just set it for April 30th at 3:15. And at the bottom here, we have three options. So we have save as draft. So if you are still working on an email and you want to come back later to continue, you can save it as a draft. If your email is complete and ready to go, but you want to just send it to yourself just to make sure everything looks good and looks correct, you can click the send to myself, and that will send a copy of the email to you so you can review it before you go ahead and click send. And of course, the last option here is send. So we're going to go ahead and click send. It's going to ask you to confirm. In this case, we've only selected the one recipient, so it's just letting us know. We're going to go ahead and click OK. And once we do that, it will take us back to this email services page where we can now see that email is scheduled. So if, in this case, we want to cancel the scheduled email, we can go ahead and click this button under Actions. And the second last option here is Cancel. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And we'll go ahead and confirm that. And you can see once we do that, it moves the email back to draft. So I can still go in and open that up. And we can continue working from where we left off. So you do have that option to cancel scheduled emails if you change your mind. So I'm just going to go ahead and save as draft. Next thing I do want to quickly show you is the contacts. So the contact groups, we briefly touched on it. You can send emails to specific contact groups, and you can actually create custom contact groups. So we're just going to quickly go over that. So in order to do that, on the light blue menu bar near the top, we can go ahead and click the Contacts tab. And on the menu bar directly below, we can go ahead and click Manage Groups. Now, once the group page loads here, we can see that we have a few groups already set up. And you'll notice we have two different types. So we have the System Contact Group, as well as the Custom Contact Group. The System Contact Group is basically a contact group that is created and maintained by the system. So for example, we have meeting guests here. So the way that works is if a member or if a user is entered in as a meeting guest for one of your meetings, the system will add that contact record that's created automatically to the meeting guest contact group. So you don't have to worry about managing that. The system will handle that for you. For custom types, that is something that the club can, of course, create and maintain manually. So we're going to go ahead and create a new contact group. So I'm going to go ahead and click this Add Contact Group button. And it's going to ask for a group name. So let's just say Barbecue Organizers. You can add a description. And we also have the option for a label color. So I'll go ahead and click this pretty cool orange. And we're going to go ahead and click Save on the bottom right. And we can see now we have our new group called Barbecue Organizers. We don't have any contacts in here yet, but what we can do on the right under Actions, we can click Assign Contacts. And it's going to bring up a list of all of the contacts that the club has. And we can go through and select the contacts that we want to include in this particular group. So we're going to go ahead and select those. And once you're done, we're going to click the Save button near the top right here. And we can see the contacts were updated successfully. So now if I go back to Communication, Email Services, and let's just open up that email that we had worked on a little earlier. If we scroll down, we can expand the contact groups. And we can see now we have the barbecue organizers group. And of course, just like the other active and honorary members, we can select the entire barbecue organizers group, or if we want, we can expand it and we can select individual contacts from that group. So you do have a lot of flexibility with the contact groups. You can create custom groups and assign contacts directly to those groups. So now that we've covered creating contact groups, sending emails out, and creating emails, another thing that we should talk about is the email stats. So if I go back to communication, again on the top, on the menu bar near the top, and then click on email services, we can see there are a couple of emails that were previously sent. And what we can do with emails that were already sent is we can actually review the email stats for that particular email. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the actions button here on the right. And the second option here is stats. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And once that stats page loads, you can see it'll show you all of this information. So we could see that the email was sent to 6 people. There was an issue here, it was dropped, which we will talk about shortly here, but you get a good overview of how many were opened, how many were successfully delivered, and how many were undelivered or had any issues. And then we can, of course, see the list of recipients down at the bottom here. So as we can see, there were 6 selected recipients. 5 of them seem to have been sent successfully, but there's one here at the bottom that says dropped. And this means that there was an issue sending the email to this particular user. So we'll go ahead and investigate that shortly. Just before we move off of this stats page, I do want to mention that the stats are a great overview. They can be used as like a general guideline to see how emails are doing and how they're being received. But it's very, very important to note that it's not 100% accurate 100% of the time. So while it's a very good tool to use as an overview, a general overview, like I said, there are several reasons why this recipient may have opened it, but it may not show opened here. So it's in certain cases it may not be 100% accurate, but like I said, it's a great tool to use as a general overview. So let's take a look at this dropped email case here. So we can see we tried to send an email to Sean Smith, and it didn't work. So from the email stats page, we have the option here to actually click the status. So that's dropped. And what that'll do is that it's going to list all of the undelivered email, the recipients that had trouble or issues sending the email to here. But this page is specific for this particular email that we sent. If you want to view a list of emails that are blocked by the system for all emails that are sent, so all current blocked emails, what we can do is rather than come to this page through the email stats, we'd recommend going through the communication tab again at the very top, and then click on the manage blocked emails directly below. And here we can see that we do have the blocked email. Again, it's Sean Smith. And the reason that's listed here is invalid address. In this case, the email address, of course, at example.com, it doesn't exist. It's not valid. So that's why we do have this issue. And what we can do to unblock this email address is under the actions, we can click the button here, and we can go ahead and click unblock. You can see that the email address was successfully removed from the suppression list, and we no longer see it listed here. So we've gone ahead and effectively unblocked the email address. One thing I do want to emphasize is that unblocking the email from this blocked email list won't always resolve issues. So for example, the case that we just had, the email address was invalid. It was incorrect. The email address did not exist. So I went ahead and I unblocked it. But if I go ahead and try to send another email to that same user without going into their member profile and updating their email address to the correct email address, to a valid email address, then that email address is just going to be added to the block list again. So There are some cases where, especially if there's a typo in the email address, I would recommend you go to the member profile, make sure that the email address is correct and valid, and then come back in here and then unblock them. Because if the member still has an invalid email address on the member profile, next time we try to send the email, their email address is going to be blocked again. So keep that in mind. Another common reason that there's kind of two main common reasons that we see for blocked emails. One of them is invalid or incorrect email address. And another one is the user marked an email sent from ClubRunner as spam. So we don't recommend marking emails sent, legitimate emails sent from clubs as spam. But if that is the case and it was marked as spam, the system will recognize that and will add that email address to the block list to prevent emails being sent to that address going forward. So again, in that case, you can come in and we can unblock it. Yeah, that is an option here with the unblock list. Okay, and I think that was about it for emails. So what we can do now is we're going to move over to the bulletin portion of the webinar. So ClubRunner does come with a bulletin module, which the club can use to build out and send out bulletins or newsletters that the club might have. So let's take a look at that. In order to access that module, on the light blue menu bar near the top, we're going to go ahead and click on Bulletin. And then on the menu bar directly below, we're going to go ahead and click Manage Bulletins. And once we do that, we can see we have a little landing page here. If we scroll down, we have our recent bulletins here to the left. And on the right, we have the option to create bulletin, view bulletins, as well as we have some quick links here to access the module settings, manage the bulletin groups, manage the templates, as well as view send history and stats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and we'll start creating a brand new bulletin. So I'm going to go ahead and click this Create Bulletin button. Okay, and once we do that, we are welcomed here with a bunch of templates that we can use to create our new bulletin. So if we scroll down here, there are several options that are available to use. We have also the regular templates. We have blank templates if you want to start off from just a blank text template, or we even have My Templates, so this tab up at the top. So ClubRunner does allow you to save bulletins as a template. So if, for example, you have a bulletin that you send out every week, let's say, you can save that bulletin as a template and you can use that template as a starting point each week rather than going through and rebuilding it each time. So for now, we're just going to go ahead and let's select one of these here. Let's select this one. This one looks nice. So we'll go ahead and select that. And I'm going to go ahead and click the orange Next button near the top right. And when I do that, it's going to take a couple seconds here because it's going to build out the brand new bulletin. So as we can see, we've gone ahead and created the bulletin. It's used that template that I selected, and we have the information here on the left. So when we're on the designer here on the left, we can see a preview of the bulletin as we're building it. So this is our live designer, and it's really great because you can actually see the changes as you make them. So if you drag in widgets and things like that, you'll actually see the changes. So you can actually visualize what's going on when you drag that widget in. Before we actually get into adding widgets to the bulletin, I just want to go over a few of the different options that we have out up at the top here. So we have a few buttons. So we have content, themes, layouts, properties, and text. So content, we'll come back to that. This is where all the widgets are. Next, we have themes. So I'm going to go ahead and click themes. So if you want to change the look and feel of your bulletin, themes is a great way to easily do that. If we scroll down, We can see that right now we're using minimalist compact, and we're using this particular color option. It's called Midnight Blue. But what you can do if you want to explore other options and see what the bulletin might look like, what we can do, let's take a look at this leadership option. We can select a color from the leadership option here. Let's click the first one. And we can see, okay, it's kind of similar, but we do have the different colors. The fonts are a little different, so it definitely feels a little different. Let's change the color here. So there we go. We can see that, just clicking on the different color changes all of the colors. And of course, we do have several theme options. So there's the leadership compact, minimalist compact, and then we also have airmail, bulletin brochure, bulletin classic, bulletin contemporary corners, the newspaper, the plain theme, the RI theme, and then the simple and the white. And of course, with each of those theme options, we do have several color options as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and just click the original one that we had. So it's, again, it was minimalist compact and this midnight blue. I'm going to go ahead and select on that. And that is how you change the theme. Now we also have the option here for layouts. So if you want to change how the data is actually displayed on the bulletin, we can change the layout. So theme is for look and feel, so colors, fonts, things like that. If we want to change the layout, then we can do that here. Now just note this is one of our test accounts, so it looks like there's some duplicated layouts here. You shouldn't see duplicated layouts, just keep that in mind. But we do have several options that you can use. Right now, let's scroll down. We can see that the one that we have currently active is this one, header, full width, right sidebar, bottom. But you can see that we have this little icon here that shows you a bit of a preview of what it'll look like. So you can see that we have the full width sections up at the top, and we have a wider section here on the left with a narrow section on the right. If, for example, we wanted all full width sections, what we can do is we can go ahead and click this option. We can see that they're all full width sections. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And let's see how that changed. So we can see that now, see how stories takes up the full width. Even this takes up the full width. So we don't have that little sidebar that we had previously. So if you do want to change the layout of the bulletin, again, you can use the layouts options. I'm just going to go ahead. I do like the little sidebar here, so I'm going to go ahead and change it back to the way we had it before. And just to confirm, yeah, you can see that stories, it takes up this larger end, and we also have the column here. It's a little narrower on the right. Next up at the top here, we have properties. So if we want to set basic properties for our bulletin, we can do so here. And if we just take a look at the different options, up at the top here, we have the name. So you can change the name of the bulletin. You can set a date for the bulletin, a bulletin code. Then we also have bulletin group. So right now we only have general, but if, for example, the club, let's say, sends out a weekly bulletin and also a monthly bulletin, excuse me, and you want to separate that, you can create different groups, and you can assign the bulletins to those groups. So in this case, like I said, we only have the general, but if the club does have, let's say a weekly and a monthly bulletin, and you want to separate that, you can do that through bulletin groups. We also have the option here for editor name. And if I type in my name here, there we go. It'll actually search for the members. So if I just type in my name here, I do see Sean Smith. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And you can see when I click on it, it updates the editor name, but also updates the editor email. So it pulls this email from the member's member profile. Next, we have email subject. So this is going to be the subject that's used when we send out the bulletin. We can change this before we actually send it. So we will take a look at that shortly. And below that, we have website publishing options. So if we want the bulletin to appear on the website, we can toggle this on, or if we don't want it to appear on the website, we can, of course, uncheck that. We'll just go ahead and leave that checked. And the other option that we have here is show commitments. So if I actually scroll down to the bottom of this bulletin here, we'll see that highlighted. I'm just hovering over it so you can see a little better. We have a show commitments section. And what this will do is it will show the recipient's commitments. So things like if the member or the recipient is registered for events, if they're signed up for volunteer tasks, they're going to show up here. So uh, it'll replace this show commitment section with a list of actual commitments for that individual recipient. And similar to what we saw with the mail merge fields, the commitment section is specific to the recipient. So if I send this to two people, if I send it to, again, Sean and John, John is going to see John's commitments and Sean will see Sean's commitments. So you won't see each other's commitments. It's only that recipient's commitments that are shown here. So really cool feature. And lastly, under properties, we have access level. So if this bulletin can be accessed by the public, then we can enable the public option. But if you do want to limit it to members only, you do have that option of requires login. So the user won't be able to see it until they actually log in. So I'll just go ahead and click save. And that's saved. So we're going to go ahead and scroll up. And the last option here is the text option. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we can see here the text option, there is some data there already. And what this is used for is in cases where the recipient email client, for some reason, can't display the bulletin that's sent out, they will see this text version. And the text version does include a link that the user can use to view the bulletin online. So if for any reason the email client can't display the bulletin, they will see this and they'll be able to view it online. You can, of course, edit this, but like I said, it is automatically populated here. But if you want to go in and make some changes, you can certainly do that through the text section. So now that we've covered those options, let's hop back to this content button here. And we're just going to go over the different widgets that are available in the bulletin module. So we can see that we have several categories of widgets, starting with pre-formatted widgets. So I'm just going to go ahead and expand that here. And pre-formatted widgets are similar to custom widgets, which we will talk about shortly, in that you can add custom content. But the great thing with pre-formatted widgets is that it's, as it says, it's pre-formatted. It's already formatted for you, so you don't have to worry about formatting. If, for example, you want to include just an image with a caption below it, we have this second option here that you can use. So it's very easy to add that information to the bulletin. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. Let's go ahead and for now, let's select this image with caption. So I'm going to go ahead and hover over it. I'm going to left click and I'm going to drag it over. When I drag it over, you'll see that there's a drop here that's outlined in green. This is going to tell you where that widget that you're holding onto is going to be inserted. So if I want it above the stories, I can drop it here. If I want it below, I can drop it there. So use your cursor to identify where you want it to be inserted. I'm going to go ahead and drop that there. And we can see now that it's inserted this this widget here that we can now easily click the pencil icon and we can select an image. Let's just select this one for now. And we can also easily select the text directly below it. So we can add a caption. And it's as simple as that. So pre-formatted widgets are really great for quickly adding data that that you want to the bulletin that may not already exist in ClubRunner. And again, it's all pre-formatted for you, so you don't have to worry about formatting. So we do have text only, image with caption. We have a single button if you want to add a button. We also have article with left image, article with right image, with buttons, triple image above text, and so on. There are several options that we can that we have available. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse that section. Next is the essentials. So we're going to go ahead and open that. And in Essentials, we do have several options. First one here is meeting information. One thing I do want to mention is if you see here, if I hover over this widget, on the top right, there's a magnifying glass. If I go ahead and click on that magnifying glass, I'll be able to actually preview what this widget looks like. So, I might not be too sure what this meeting information widget is, what it displays. So I can easily find out by just clicking that magnifying glass. And we'll see a preview of that widget. So I can see exactly what it's going to display on the bulletin. Another cool feature is you can actually select where where you want the preview to display as. So if, for example, I want to see how this widget is going to look in that narrower column, I can click this option here and we can see that it's displayed or it's previewed a little bit narrow here on the right. So if you're not sure of a widget and you want to take a look, you could drag it in, but it's a little easier to have that magnifying glass. So just to go over the essential widgets that we do have here, we have meeting information, which displays the meeting information, executives and directors, which lists out the current year executives and directors. We have bulletin stories and bulletin news, which are similar, but we will discuss that here shortly. We have bulletin download files. It lists download files available for the bulletin. We also have photo albums. Again, displays a list of photo albums. We also have the bulletin pages and site pages. Again, listing the different pages available for the bulletin. We also have birthdays and anniversaries. So if I just click this magnifying glass, we can display upcoming birthdays and anniversaries. As a note, the birthdays, it doesn't show the year, it's just the day. So there is that option there that you can display the upcoming birthdays and anniversaries. And the last option here we have is President's Message. So from the essentials, I definitely want to cover the bulletin stories and bulletin news. So both of them, they're similar widgets. They both work off of the stories that are created in ClubRunner, but they are separate so that you can create a separation between the different types of stories maybe that you want to display. So just as an example, maybe you want to include stories about the club, and then you also want to display stories about maybe what's going on in the community. And if you want to separate those two different types of stories, I guess, we do have the bulletin stories and the bulletin news. Just to see how this bulletin stories widget works, let's go ahead and hover over that, and I'm going to drag that into the designer here. I'm going to go ahead and drop it at the bottom here. Actually, it's already added, but I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. So if you do want to remove a widget, you can hover over it and click the X icon. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that and remove that one as well. So now all that we're left here is the stories. And right now we can see there are no stories on the widget. So in order to add these stories, we can hover over the widget and I can go ahead and click this edit widget icon. So it's a little box with the arrow pointing outwards. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we can see there are no stories yet. So on the top right here, we have two options. We have add stories from the story library, or we can create new story. If I click create new story, it gives you the editor to actually create the brand new story. We're just going to go ahead and click cancel. But we can also add stories from the story library. So I'm going to go ahead and click the add stories from story library. And we can see the different stories that we already have saved in ClubRunner. And of course, we can go ahead and just select a few of those that we want to include in the bulletin. Once we have those checked, we can go ahead and click the done button on the bottom right. And that will save that. So now we see all of the stories here. And you'll notice there are these three dots here on the right, or sorry, on the left. And when I hover over it, the cursor turns into 4 arrows. Those are grab points. You can actually change the order of the story by just left clicking and dragging that down. Once we're done, we're happy with the stories we've added and we're happy with the order, we can go ahead and click done. And if I come back here and I scroll down, we now see that the stories are added to the bulletin. I'm going to go ahead and just edit this here. And just to show you how we can remove the bulletins, we can go ahead and just check the bulletins we want to remove, or sorry, the stories we want to remove, and click remove selected. And just to note, this will remove the story from the bulletin. It will not delete the story. So we can go ahead and remove that. It's just going to ask you to confirm. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And we can see now we just have that one History of Women in Rotary story. Perfect. Now, with the stories widget, another thing I do want to mention is if we hover over and click this gear icon, we can actually change the properties of the widget. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we can scroll to the very bottom. We do have different options here, but the one that's specific to the stories that I do want to highlight is the show read more option. So if we want to include just the brief of the story and show that read more link to the full story, we can do that here. So I'm going to go ahead and click cancel. And that's how you use the stories widget. So I'm just going to go ahead and collapse that and we'll continue. The next section here is the link section. So the links widget allows you to create basically a list of custom links. So if I hover over this again, click the magnifying glass, we can see that we have a couple of links on this particular links widget. And if I just drag this in, just so we can see, I'm going to put it at the top here. And we can see we have Rotary related and ClubRunner links. Again, you can customize that by hovering over and clicking this edit widget option. Next is events. So under events, we have the bulletin speakers, we have bulletin upcoming events, and the bulletin meeting responsibilities. And these all list those items. So they'll list the speakers, upcoming events, and the meeting responsibilities. As we can see here, we already have the speakers widget here, and we also have the upcoming events widget here as well. And just to show you, if we hover over the upcoming events widget and we click this gear icon, again, we're going to go to the widget properties. Just give that a second to load here. There we go. And we're going to scroll down. We have these really cool settings that you can use to configure how many items you want to display and how many, like how far ahead you want to display. So with the upcoming events, we can set it to a maximum of 10 items to display. If we want to change that, we can change it to 5. And if we only want to show the next 1 month, we can change that here as well. So we can go ahead and click save. And it will update the widget with the updated values. So it'll only show, as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So really cool settings there. And next section we have here is a bulletin and PR. So we have the bulletin editor widget, which if we preview here, it'll just show you the bulletin editor information. We have a bulletin subscribe widget, which users can use to subscribe. It'll include a link to our bulletin subscribe page. We also have a bulletin Rotary links widget, which is a list of links, but Rotary specific for our Rotary accounts. We also have an RSS widget. So if the club wants to include RSS feed on the bulletin, you can do that. And of course, if the club uses the sponsors module for club sponsors, we can display those sponsors in the bulletin as well. And lastly, we have the custom widgets. So we have them broken out into 2 categories. So we have custom widgets global, custom widgets bulletin specific. So custom widgets are similar to the pre-formatted widgets in that we add our own custom content. We can type out whatever we want. But the difference is that this is not pre-formatted. This you can format how you want. You can add the content you want. With the pre-formatted widgets, of course, you have that format already defined for you, whereas widgets you don't. or the custom widgets, I should say. And again, we do have global, which means you can use this particular custom widget across all bulletins. But if you want to create a custom widget just specifically for this one bulletin, we can use the bulletin specific version. I know we are running out of time. We're almost there. Now we have our bulletin. It's all set up. We have our widgets added, and we want to send it out. What we can do on the very top right, we can go ahead and click next. And it should show us a preview of the bulletin. There we go. So we can take a look at the bulletin before we proceed, just to make sure that it has everything we want on there. It looks good. If you do want to test it on your email client, you can click the send test to myself and send the email or the bulletin to yourself. Similar to what we saw with the emails earlier, you can send a test copy to yourself just to make sure everything looks okay in the client. Next, we're going to go ahead and send it. So we're going to click this next button again. And here we have the interface for sending out the bulletin. So on the left, we're not going to go over this because we went over it with the regular emails, but you can select your recipients here. And on the right, we have the email subject. So again, like I said, we can customize this here. Next, we have the archive bulletin after sending option. So we recommend when you're done with a bulletin to archive it, and that way changes can't be made to it going forward. And it's there. It's still accessible. You can still view it, but once you send it, it's done. You don't need to edit it anymore. You can archive it and be done with it. So we do recommend enabling that archive bulletin after sending. If you don't want to archive it right away after sending, you can select no, and I will show you how you can archive the bulletin after it has been sent. So we'll leave that for now. We do also have the option to copy me on this bulletin, similar to the email. And below that, we have reply to. So you can actually configure who gets this email when the recipient replies to the bulletin. So you can choose me, which is me, the person who is currently logged in. You can select bulletin editor, which pulls from that bulletin properties that we used. And we also have custom. So you can add in a custom name and email address. I'll just set it to bulletin editor. And like the email at the bottom here, we do have the option to either send now or schedule for later. And that's about it. So when you're ready to go, of course, we do need to select recipients. We can click this send button to send it out. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and click on the save and exit. And I'm going to show you guys how we can quickly archive a bulletin that we may have already sent or we no longer want in the active bulletin list. So on the left here, we have under Getting Started, View All Bulletins. You can also click this button on the right that says View Bulletins, and it'll pull up our active bulletins. And from here, we can hover over the bulletin, click this little button here with the downward arrow, and we have a few different options. Before we archive, I do want to mention, earlier I did mention that we can create custom bulletin templates. And in order to do that, you can come to this page and click this Save As Template. So if I click the Save As Template, it's going to save this specific bulletin as a template. That way, if I need to send out a similar bulletin next week, I can use that as a template going forward. That way I don't have to keep going through the same process. But for now, we just want to archive. So I'm going to go ahead and click the archive button. It's going to ask you to confirm. It does say you will no longer be able to edit the bulletin, but that's okay. We sent it out. We don't need to edit it anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now you can see that now disappears. And if I click this drop down, select archive bulletins, we can now see, I probably should have named it something different, but this is the one that we're creating. So this is the bulletin to columns. and it is now archived. So that about wraps up our presentation portion of the webinar. So what I'll do is I will pass it over to Robin for the Q&A session, and hopefully we can answer a few of those questions.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sean. Richard Denton actually had just a quick question. Could you actually, I think he mentioned the first couple steps of going through the archiving again. He just mentioned that it was a touch fast, so he kind of missed that. So maybe if we could just kind of go over, because I know it is one thing that does come up quite a bit of just people asking about the process of archiving, if you don't mind.
Yes,
Thank
yeah,
you.
no, not at all. So if we go back to, let's go back to the main page here. So again, it's on the light blue menu bar near the top. If we click Bulletin, and then on the menu bar directly below, we can click Manage Bulletins. We can go ahead and click, there's a couple of ways to get there. So if we're from this Manage Bulletins page, on the left under Getting Started, we can select View All Bulletins, or we can also select the View Bulletins button here. So I'll just go ahead and click View All Bulletins. Now we only have one active because we archived that other one, but I'll go ahead and archive this one. I don't think we need this one anymore. So I'll hover over the bulletin that I want to archive. I'm going to click this button with the downward arrow, and there's an archive option here. So I'm going to go ahead and just select archive. Again, it's going to ask you to confirm because we won't be able to edit archived bulletins, and I'll go ahead and click OK. And then now you can see, because we're viewing the active bulletins currently, that does disappear. And if I select archive bulletins from the dropdown, we'll see that here it is. The May bulletin draft is now archived.
Perfect. Thank you. So Marlene Heller mentions that she's having difficulty locating them, or she especially finding them. So Marlene, please let us know if that was more or less, because I think it is a bit different at the district level to find them. It's essentially, you still have to click on bulletins, but it is a bit different. If I'm not mistaken, there is just like the view all archive bulletins on the left-hand side. But yes, please let us know if that did answer your question. Okay, so Elena Scoggins mentions, I'd rather send text links than email. So at this current time, when you're sending the emails and the bulletins, it can't be sent out as a text link. It's just emails. But I will definitely take that as feedback, though. I'll share that with our product team. So actually, Sean, just to make sure I'm correct on this one. So Stacy Rodriguez asks, if you archive a bulletin and then change a story, does it change in the, if you have a bulletin that has a story inside of it, then you archive the bulletin and then you change the story, will the story update, or will it be the most recent, or will it use that previous version of the story?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when you archive it, it's archived, so you can change the stories and it won't change the archived bulletins. So that is why we recommend archiving bulletins once you're done with it. And then that way, what it allow you to do essentially is have like a historical record of all of the previous bulletins, and you'll be able to see exactly which stories were on that specific bulletin. So to answer your question, yes, when you archive the bulletin and if you change the stories on a new bulletin, it will not impact that archive bulletin.
Perfect. Thank you. Last question from Jan Gray. She mentions, well, with recipients of mails that have opted out, did you say we should delete them or just leave it alone? I guess it really depends. If they are just the members of your club, I would suggest, it sounds like they'd want to get the email. So I would probably suggest reaching out to the members themselves, being like, hey, Sean, Robin, did you opt out on purpose? Did you want to receive them or not? And then just, it's going to be a case-by-case basis, but more often than not, I would suggest reaching out, making sure, hey, are you okay with opting out? This is what you're going to miss. And if Robin and Sean are okay with opting out, then we can absolutely do that. So I think I already mentioned it, but Marlene, John, and Richard, there's a couple of people that I am going to be reaching out to that I'm just going to have to look into. I'm just going to have to look into very specific account side issues. There is one question that we actually had here that I thought it might be good just to kind of go over. So what's the access level that needs to be created? So some people were wondering, can my average members just jump in, or
Yeah, so you will need the editor access level. So to take a look at that, let's just open up my member profile here. If I go to my ClubRunner, my profile, just so we can take a look at the different options. So this is the member I'm currently logged in with. If we go ahead and click settings, we can see right now I'm access level 30, which is the highest access. If I click the edit button here on the right, and okay, that's right. Let's I can't change my own. That's right. So if I go to member lists, okay, let's leave that. Let's open up this member profile here, the first one we see. I again go to settings. Okay, we can see this one is a level 70 member. I'm going to click edit. And here we have the drop-down list. So in order to access the bulletin designer, you will need that access level 60, which is editor. So that's a great question.
Perfect. And I think that's the end of the questions.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you very much, Robin, for the Q&A session there. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Hopefully you found that webinar very helpful. There are a few resources here just before we let you go. If you do have questions, you can certainly contact us directly at support@clubrunner.ca. Or you can definitely take a look at all of our online resources. We have lots of how-to videos, how-to articles. We have recorded webinars as well on our knowledge base. Which is clubrunnersupport.com. So definitely check that out if you're not sure of anything. We do have lots of resources there. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, all of these sessions will be recorded and we will be uploading them to our knowledge base a few weeks after the conclusion of the sessions. So do keep an eye out for that. If you do want to join our online community, start a discussion with other ClubRunner users such as yourself, please feel free to join our community at clubrunnercommunity.com. And lastly, we do have a mobile app for iPhone and Android. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely recommend taking a look. It is a free app that you can download through the App Store or Google Play Store, depending on your device, and gives you a lot of access to ClubRunner items in the palm of your hand. So definitely check that out as well. Once again, my name is Sean. With me was Robin, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Take care.